Do you think this has the potential to work, or do you think that young people just simply aren't convinced?
I do think it has the potential to work, because I think there are different personality types. I'd say personally I'm quite a instinctively liberal, sceptical of authoritarianism in general. And so the vaccine passport suggestion is something that would personally put me off. But I would be much more supportive or much more willing to pay attention when there was much more positive intentions, what we describe as the kind of carrot and stick method. So I would say that for people that have a certain personality type and are much more drawn in by those things, and I think that it is understandable that the government are taking those measures, and I think they have to take a range of measures in order to respond to this reality that it has slowed down for younger people in particular, particularly those in the 18 to 24 bracket. And, you know, I spoke to the vaccine minister a couple of days ago, and he did suggest that some of those reasons could just be the fact that young people may not realise why it's important for them to get it. So, for example, we know that young people are substantially less at risk of developing most serious symptoms such as hospitalisations and even deaths, and so they may not really realise the arguments as to why it is necessary for them, in the government's perspective, in order to get the vaccine. So I think that taking a range of different measures in order to appeal to different types of people and the different reasons why people have not necessarily taken it is probably the right approach.
Ellie, of course, you're in this age bracket. I mean, you know, you've got friends. What is the reason that you're hearing that people aren't taking up the jab?
Well, it's not really a huge risk to those under 30, right? So if you're not going to be hospitalised, you're not going to die from it. I mean, I've got lots of friends that haven't even had one vaccine yet, and they say they just haven't got round to it. You know, if it's not a threat to you and your loved ones, your grannies and your aunties and your mums are vaccinated, then there's not really much worry. That's the sense that I'm getting from my friends on the ground. I don't know if that's something that you've experienced as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And behavioural scientists do mention that it's not necessarily moral and ethical reasons why people don't take the vaccine. It's often lack of accessibility, and we know that when there was a lower vaccine take-up amongst ethnic minority people, the government took a range of measures such as community leaders, pop-up vaccination centres, a discussion about door-to-door vaccines, and all of these types of things which did actually double the amount of ethnic minority people that did take the vaccine. But I do think it's been slow, the government's been slow to actually do similar types of measures when it comes to young people. So we've not seen them pop up at nightclubs and bars in ways in which a lot of young people congregate, and only in the last few days have we seen this shift in turn. And I do think it is somewhat because of the slight pushback in relation to vaccine passports. Obviously, the Liberal Democrats said that they weren't going to support it. Many of the Tory backbenchers were also against it. So this is perhaps a response to a lot of that in order to actually reach that threshold that we do need in order to get herd immunity and get the majority, a significant amount, upwards of 90% of young people getting the vaccine in order to reach that threshold.
And if we look at the front page of the Sunday People today, there we go. Kebabs for jabs, it says. People potentially being offered the old doner kebab to get this jab, and talk about fast food as well. We're talking about kind of pizza here, or Mackie D's and others. And this does seem to be at odds with the government and a Prime Minister who's talked about tackling obesity, and how, frankly, if we're really frank about this, how actually it is, to a large degree, obese people who've ended up, unfortunately, being hospitalised by this very awful disease. I don't know how you kind of, you know, there's some raised eyebrows, I think, amongst some MPs this morning about that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not entirely sure how they're planning to square that circle. And we did see a similar thing last year with the Eat Out to Help Out, which was encouraging people to go out and have a lot of fast food and go to lots of restaurants and be discounted. So there is form from the government in relation to, on the one hand, pushing for healthy eating and trying to incentivise that, whilst on the other hand using the opportunity to have fast food and things like that in order to get people to do the things that they want. So I do think it is quite contradictory. But as many people do mention, we are in unprecedented times, and so when we are in those situations, oftentimes measures that we wouldn't otherwise ordinarily expect the government to do, even if it doesn't necessarily tally up with their wider political orientation or their wider goals, may need to be taken in order to encourage people to do something like get the vaccine.
Now, we've been talking a lot about the carrot and the stick, haven't we? And this incentive today, these taxi rides, cinema tickets, fast food, it's all part of this carrot method. And we were talking yesterday, weren't we, about the pop-up centres that people can go to, young people can go to. Is that the way to do it, do you think, to incentivise people that way, to make it accessible and cool?
I think it is. I think that punitive and coercive measures can work, and as you rightfully mentioned, Darren, in the last hour, those are some of the measures that France is taking, and that does seem to be effective. But I don't think that it is completely effective. It may be very effective in the short term, but we also have to consider the long-term erosion of the kind of relationship between the state and its citizens when it ratchets it up, this kind of punitive and coercive measures. So I think that if we are going to do that, then it has to also be balanced out with other measures, as the one that the government is announcing in relation to incentivising people, making them do positive things, actually encouraging people to go out, such as cinemas and things like that. So this is all part of, hopefully, a suite of things that the government will be announcing, or has been announcing, in order to get young people to have their first jab.
Really interesting, and as you say, controversial, must be said as well. Inaya, thank you very much indeed for that this morning.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.